Hey, it's Denise, and this is just a real quick update on what's going on in my hallway garden. Here you can see I have some dill and some parsley that I just harvested from the Aerogarden that's down in my kitchen. I'm going to spread them out a little bit more than this to let them dry, and then I can just store them in a glass jar as dried herbs. And by clipping your plants regularly, it stops them from getting just tall and leggy and encourages them to get a little more bushy, which is just better. They won't be just getting tall and tipping over. And in that Aerogarden, I also have my third fairy tale eggplant, which started, I want to say, a few days to a week behind these two. I just wanted to show you how the two in the upstairs Aerogarden are coming along. They're getting nice and big, as you can see. I think last time I showed them to you, they're not much more than, just sprouts with their first little set of leaves. And you can see they've got definitely full, mature leaves setting on both of them. And again, that is, can you read the label? It is a fairy tale eggplant, is the name of the variety. And they are a very small eggplant, like 2 to 3 inches. Supposedly the plants are prolific and you get a lot of eggplants per plant, so I'm hoping that's the case. And I know it's pushing it a little bit. This, again, as I mentioned before, this particular garden has a 2-foot height between the light and the garden. And these plants supposedly range from 2 to 2.5 feet. So I am pushing it a little bit, growing it here as opposed to growing it in the farm, which has a 3-foot growing space. But the farm is still working on the last of the winter squash. Once that's done, which I think will be soon, I think there's really only one more that's going to mature at a good size. And once that's done, I'll rip that out and replant it with things that I think will do better. But I'm very happy with how these eggplant are coming along. And while my hallway, the upstairs hallway, now usually I'm standing at the top of my stairs whenever you see me kind of at this angle with the Aerogarden. And as you can see, I have a fan here. Now during all summer, I had the fan on to blow the hot air back down. Otherwise it would get ridiculously hot up here. And of course my bedroom is air conditioned and I keep the door shut because otherwise it would just be way too hot. Now, here's the thing with my old house here. The only heating vent for the entire upstairs, which has 3 rooms off of it, there's the hallway, which you're familiar with from my gardening exploits, but there are 3 rooms off of it. My bedroom, which is the largest of the rooms, and then one room, which I think I showed you that I have changed into storage. Forgive me if I'm showing you weird angles here as I try to get over. I'm gonna put this down without squashing my beautiful plants, because as I try to climb over, and yes, I need to clear this stuff out. I got a little over ambitious in some of the gardening plans this year, but I could lie and say that's not my nature, but it kind of is. I see growing and gardening as like not only a joy but a challenge, and not a challenge like in a competitive way, but a challenge like against myself, like how can I do better than last year. So I had found these old, and by old I mean, let's see, I don't have my glasses on, so I don't even know if I'm going to be able to see what year these seeds were from. Actually, I probably stand a better chance looking through here. These were from packed for sale for 2018. So these seeds were 2 years old, coming up on 3 years old if you consider that they're now selling the 2021 seeds. And I only had a few seeds left in it. I started them in this large bucket, but I'm using in here, and this is probably going to just mess up the lighting, because they're not the white lights, they're the ones that are purely the blue and red, and they must never show up right on camera. This room has no that looks like there's a window, but in reality it attaches to another apartment that was added onto the building. As I've mentioned before, I live in what is the majority of the original old farmhouse that then had a large addition built on, which incorporated 3 more apartments. So what had been a single family home is now a 4 apartment building. The part I live in is the majority of the original farmhouse, but part of it was chopped off and part of it was blocked, for example, that window, by adding more building onto it. So the only natural light that this room gets, you can see there are no windows. You can also see I used it, there's a bed in here, and I used it for storage of extra canning goods. And now this is stuff you might be saying, wow, there's a canning shortage, how'd you get this? The majority of these cases of this, you can see these aren't ball canning jars, which in the US are probably the most popular brand, certainly my favorite brand. This Golden Harvest brand is what Dollar General sells. And now last year at the end of canning season, I got everything they put on clearance at 70% off, because last year there was no shortage. So at the end of the summer, they put them on clearance, and I must have got 6 or 7 cases at least of the quart jars. So I have 5 of them that are unopened, kind of buried in this wall here. And then I've still got some ball quart jars. I've got a few pint jars. I actually today used some of these little 8-ounce jars like that. You know, you could call them a quarter pint. They're the little tiny jelly jars. And I used 11 of these actually, the quilted jelly jars, which are, again, half pint, so they're 8 ounces. This morning I canned 11 8-ounce jars. I made homemade strawberry jam, and I'd actually frozen the strawberries because I got them for free dumpster diving. For those of you, I used to be an avid dumpster diver. Then, you know, with the whole COVID thing, I got out of it. And as someone pointed out, you're more likely to catch COVID in the store where there are a lot of people and you're indoors with recirculated air than you are out by the dumpster, where Aldi is notorious for throwing out perfectly good food. So I don't know why I stopped, other than just during the heat of summer, dumpsters can be hot and icky. So on a cool evening, I did go, and I got several quarts of strawberries. When I took them home, I cleaned them in a vinegar and water solution, which honestly you should do with your, whether you bought them in the store or got them from the dumpster, because in the store you don't know who touched them or who touched them while they were being shipped or unpacked. So you should always rinse your fresh produce in some vinegar and water, just to kind of, the acidity of the vinegar kills a lot of bacteria. Obviously, you're not going to use like cleaner or bleach or anything on something you're going to eat, but vinegar is a good thing to help take care of bacteria on your produce. So I give everything a good rinse. I also got a bunch of heads of broccoli, just to mention, and I ended up making a glorious, and I got some mushrooms, basically cream of broccoli and mushroom soup that I was able to freeze 6 1-cup servings. So I can just take out 1 serving at a time from the freezer, because my son will not touch cream of broccoli and mushroom soup. So that's just kind of something I made for myself. But today I took my free strawberries that, now the recipe I had looked at, which came from, I don't remember whose channel. It was, and I forget which book she quoted as the source. It was a lower sugar, not sugar-free, but lower sugar strawberry jam. Again, if you just want to kind of see what I've done with this, I've got some extra canning supplies over here as far as like lids and rings. These lids and stuff, after I saw about how the fake canning supply sites have been popping up, I was like, oh, please don't let me have ordered from one of them. And I was very happy when these items actually arrived. Although you can see, like, I mean, they're down to, I think I ordered 50 of the wide mouth lids. And you can see each one is individually wrapped. Usually you would buy these like by the dozen. Or if you're buying in bulk, you might buy even bigger than that. So I was very happy to find out that I hadn't accidentally ordered from a bad site. And yeah, so I got some regular size rings and lids. And then I got a whole bunch of wide mouth lids because I really do prefer the wide mouth pints. They're probably my favorite size to can in. So yeah, I've got extra jars. This is the reason I'm not freaking out. If I didn't have this supply, much of which, especially the larger cans, like I said, people who do canning will use the term can when they mean glass jar. So if you're not familiar with that, it's just kind of something that people who do canning say. But if I hadn't gotten all of these on clearance last year, and yeah, did they take up a lot of room to store them? Yes, they did. But I got them at 70% off last year when there wasn't a canning shortage and Dollar General just wanted to be rid of them. So I got them at a super good price, and I am so glad that I did because, like we know, right now you can't get them. I was very lucky to get these sort of, in my opinion, sort of smaller size than I would normally use. These are just straight-sided mason jars. They're half pints, so 8 ounces, but they don't have that quilted design that the ones that say quilted crystal jars, which are sort of your traditional jelly jars. And then, like I showed, I had gotten two of the cases, the 12 packs of the ones that are half that size. So they're only, well, these, both the ones that just say mason jar and the ones that say crystal jar, they're both half pint, which means 1 cup. And these are actually like quarter pints, so they're 4 ounces. When I did my jelly today, like I think I mentioned, I ended up, the original recipe calls for 5 cups of pureed strawberries, 3 cups of sugar, which sounds like a lot of sugar, and it is, but compared to, that's considered a low sugar recipe for jam or preserves. A lot of the recipes, you'll have equal amounts of sugar or sometimes even more sugar than fruit. So I ended up with when I, thawed my strawberries and kind of mashed them a little bit to see how much strawberry puree I had, I ended up with about 9.5 cups. So it wasn't exactly the full 10 cup that would have been a double batch. And again, like just paper towels and toilet paper and stuff. That's really the only extra not temperature sensitive, not food stuff that I felt like I just needed to find some room for. Anyway, so, yeah, I had like 9.5 cups, which wasn't quite 10 cups, but I went ahead and I doubled it, and I did use the low sugar pectin, which you're supposed to use for low sugar recipes. And I just went ahead and used 2 packs instead of 1, because I felt like the difference between 9.5 cups and 10 cups of fruit, if I went with 1 cup, 1 package of pectin, it might have just come out runny and not set up, and I didn't want to have a chance of doing that. And I'm glad that I did, because I ended up with 11. The original recipe was going to give you 6 of these half pint jars. So if I had a full recipe, a full double recipe, I would have had 12 of these. Sure enough, that half cup short of strawberries, because like I said, I had 9.5 cups roughly instead of 10, which would have been truly double the recipe. I got 11 of these and then 1 of these smaller ones. So it worked out perfectly. And I did get a little taste of it, and for my first time canning strawberry jam, I couldn't be more pleased with how it came out. And that is like that's that's a year's worth of strawberry jam for me. And I got the strawberries for free. And I also know that not recently, but in the past, I've gotten plenty of free sugar dumpster diving. So chances are I didn't pay for that sugar. So the only thing really I paid for was the pectin, and use per batch, it would be 4 tablespoons of lemon juice. So I used 8 tablespoons of lemon juice, which is, which I purchased. You don't want to use fresh lemon juice because you're using it to add acidity, and bottled lemon juice has a specific percentage of acidity. So when you're using it in canning, it's important to use the bottled lemon juice. Don't be tempted to just use fresh lemons, specifically for canning recipes. Anyway, so yeah, but the vast majority, the fruit, which is the most expensive part, and then the sugar were things that I'd gotten for free. The jars I had already invested in, and they're reusable. So I pretty much got a year's worth of delicious homemade strawberry preserves pretty much for free. I can't complain about that. And like I was starting to say over here, I had just a few of these seeds that were starting to get a little old. I told you, never throw out your seeds just because it's that year and you didn't finish them. And as I said, these were 2018, meant to be planted for 2018. We're coming up on 2021, and I only had a few seeds left. So I did plant them in here initially, but like I said, this room gets basically no natural sunlight, except, I don't know how much you'll see in the dark, probably not much. Up at the very top, almost by the ceiling, is a small window. In the late afternoon, that's a west-facing window. So after the sun has, passed the middle of the day, gone over the house, and as it's coming down towards evening, I get a couple hours of some actual natural sunlight coming in here, which is not enough for most plants. So the 2 seeds, it looked like they were doing the best. I transplanted them and brought them downstairs onto the counter, where they're in little pots and are getting the full light from sitting next to an Aerogarden. So one of them doesn't look like it's doing so great. One of them looks like it's taking off. Now, of course, this is a mixed color variety, so I'm not sure what color. I like the Thumbelina mix because they don't get overly large, but they're colorful and pretty, full flowers, lots of petals. So even if I get like one nice plant, I can then save the seeds from that plant and have fresh seeds for next year of a variety that I really like. So I will be perfectly happy if this 2018 pack of seeds gives me one nice plant. That's really all I wanted to share. This was just, like I said, an update of basically the eggplant, but I did want to show you how I turned this room, which had been for months, the whole bed was covered in these grow pots with a lot more sort of aggressive lighting than what I've got now. And I cleaned that all off and turned it into storage for things that really aren't temperature sensitive, as long as you're not talking freezing or boiling. And it just cleared out a lot of space that was making my living room look like a storehouse instead of a living room. So I'm pretty happy with the organization. It was a lot of trips to get all this stuff from downstairs to upstairs, especially if you're a disabled person who has trouble with their balance. So this was a couple days work, but in the long run, I'm glad I did it. So that's sort of the update with how the fairy tale eggplant are doing. And like I said, I'm leaving the fan off because eggplant are in the nightshade family, like tomatoes and peppers, and they like the heat. So by letting the heat rise all day, the upstairs hallway does get warm. And that's why my door is definitely shut and the air conditioner is on, because at this point it would be uncomfortably stuffy in my room if I left my bedroom door open. This is what is left of the garden where the I thought I had hope of 3 more winter squash besides the one that I harvested. But as you can see, these leaves are starting to look sick. The one that I thought was going to be next has decided to only grow to the size of like a golf ball and a half. You can see my hand behind it. And it's ripening instead of growing. It should still be growing at this stage. It shouldn't be ripening. One of the 2 that I had hand pollinated at the same time, they looked like they were doing great, and then it turned yellow and died. So my last real hope, I harvested one, which I showed you in a prior video. These are Buttercup Squash, which are basically a single serve size, not to be confused with butternut, which is a much larger squash. These are like a single serve squash. You could cook it for yourself and eat it pretty much in one serving. And now I'm just desperately looking through here because the lighting is so not to my advantage. That's the one you can see it shriveled up and died. I don't know why. The 2 of them took off at the same time and seemed to be doing really well. And then all of a sudden, the one just dropped dead. I'm going to try to find it from the stairs, which I think is where I saw it before. I know you're probably like, Denise, this isn't really that fascinating to most of us. But to me, who've spent months growing this and lost the use of my little hallway, because you can see my other spare room, which I want to organize for storage also to free up my living room to make it look like a living room again. I haven't been able to get in there because, you got it, there is a garden growing in my hallway that at this point I can't get through. Okay. If I poke, if I prod, there's a green, I don't think I can reach it. You can just see it. You really can't, can you? It's that thing in the middle. I don't think it lets me change zoom mid-video. No, it really doesn't. Straight back there. I'm gonna try to just reach the camera in without my hand really being able to follow it, so we'll see how that goes. And see if you get a better look. Pardon while I'm trying to get the camera into position. That's the dead one, which is blocking your view of the live one. Okay, there's the live one, the darker green that you see back there. It is growing and ripening. So it's doing what it's supposed to do. So I think I'm gonna get out of this whole jungle, I think I'm gonna get 2 decent sized winter squash, which one could very easily argue was not worth all this work. But I look at gardening as sort of a classroom, and I have to say, I learned that not to look at it as failure, but to look at it as a learning experience. And every time we try a new plant or a new variety or a new technique, if it doesn't work out the way you want it to, don't look at it as failure. Look at it as a learning experience, and the next time you will have learned some lessons about what variety to choose or what environment to grow it in. And I thank Jess at Roots and Refuge Farm, who is just so positive and inspirational in terms of reminding you that what you might think of as your waiting room, if you're someone who's hoping to get a larger gardening area and you're having just small areas to experiment in, whether it's a container garden outside or just a very small garden outside on a balcony, or maybe it is in the ground, but again, it's a very small garden, or you're growing in a greenhouse, whatever it is that isn't quite the dream that you have of your eventual gardening goal. She reminds us to not think of it as just a waiting room, but to think of our waiting room as a classroom. And even things that you might say are a failure, well, hey, I'm getting 2 winter squash out of it, and I'm getting the knowledge of what I would do differently next time. So I look at that as a learning experience, And I'm sure when I'm eating those winter squash, I will think of it as a success. Again, one last look at my little harvest of herbs from, now again, this is from my kitchen Aerogarden. I'm not dragging you all over the house. So we have dill, and again, I just snipped some of the taller, leggier plants to try to encourage it to get bushier, and parsley, kind of same thing, trimming it to get it to grow bushier and not leggy. I'll spread these out a little bit for a day or two, let them dry, and then I can put them either into a glass jar or a sealed plastic bag, and they will stay good for months to use as dried herbs. If I had something I was cooking like, today, I would have just snipped them and thrown them in with that. But today what I cooked was strawberry jam, which has no use for these type of herbs. And one last final peek at my two fairy tale eggplants, which, like I said, I've never grown them before, but from the reviews, I have high hopes of them. And I did get these seed packs to give credit where credit is due. These were pre-seeded pods from Aerogarden. Now, I have had mixed results. I think I mentioned this before. Flower seeds, I had ordered a flower seed collection from them and had really poor germination. I don't know if during the shipping process that some of the seeds maybe fell out of the pods, and therefore I was trying to germinate things that didn't actually have seeds in them. But in the case of these fairy tale eggplant, they sent 3 of them because they didn't recommend trying to squeeze more than 3, and considering I was only doing a garden with the 2-foot height, I felt like squeezing 3 of them in would be pushing it, because these can get, from what I've seen, these plants can get pretty bushy, and I wanted to be sure I was giving them plenty of room, plenty of access to light, and plenty of nutrients and water so that they weren't competing. So I put 2 of them here, and like I mentioned, the 3rd one, I waited about a week, and then I stuck it in my downstairs garden, which has the dill and the parsley. I figure by the time the eggplant is big enough to worry about it, the dill and parsley, I will have pretty much harvested and used and dried, So I'm not really worried about them competing. So that's where I'm at. People had asked me for an update on the fairy tale eggplant, and I am keeping the fan off so that the upstairs hallway stays warm, which plants in this family like the warmth. I want to encourage them to grow because it is going to start getting chilly here real soon, within the next couple weeks. We're dropping down into the high 40s some nights. So the fact that the heat rises in this upstairs hallway is probably the warmest part of the house is a good thing for plants that like it warmer. Anyway, I hope, I said this is going to be quick and I took almost a half hour, but I hope it was thorough, and I hope it showed you everything that I promised to show in an update. On the seed collection organization, my second organizer box is supposed to arrive the day after tomorrow, so that will let me finish that project up. And I did place today an order from seedsnow.com. They seem to have gotten a restock. Their prices aren't the greatest. They're low prices. They're $1 to $1.99 on a lot of their packets, but they're not a lot of seeds. So it's kind of like they call them sampler packets. And a lot of them are like, do you really need to grow more than 10 or 15 tomato or pepper plants? If you're, if you're a farmer, obviously you do. But if you're the average gardener, you probably don't. So to me, who doesn't have a large gardening area, to get lots of variety to choose from, I don't mind that. And they had sent me an email which gave a code for $10 off a $25 purchase. So I got to order $25 worth of stuff. Then it got dropped down to $15. And then there was, I think it was either $5 or $5.99. So it was either $5 or $6 shipping. So basically, you know, $10 off $25 is a pretty significant savings, especially, like I said, if you feel like you're not getting a lot of seeds per packet. Although for my purposes, they're ample number of seeds. And you might want to check out seedsnow.com, as like I said, it seems like they just recently got a restock. Baker Creek also seems to be getting in more seeds, and their website is rareseeds.com. So those would be two sources I would recommend checking out. I emailed Fruition Seeds because twice I've tried to place an order on their website. Now they are geared towards gardeners in the northeast of the United States with our colder, shorter growing season. Both times I could not get my order to go through. They did respond to my email and apologize and say that they were working on their website because they were getting a lot of traffic and they were switching over to a new website platform. They did offer me the option of if I wanted to call on the phone, they would help me place the order. Honestly, I didn't feel like waiting because I figured if they're that busy, I was probably going to call and I'd end up waiting on the phone. So I did not go ahead with that, especially because I got, today I got that email for the $10 off $25 from seedsnow.com. So when I get that order, I will share it with you. But again, while they're in stock, you might want to check them out. And again, that's seedsnow.com. And also Baker Creek seems to have gotten some more things in stock, and they are rareseeds.com. And they are both reputable. I have bought from them for several years, and I can highly recommend both companies. And no, this is not sponsored in any way, so that is just purely based on my opinion and my experience with them. I apologize for my sort of froggy sounding voice. I've been a little under the weather the last couple days, so like I said, I apologize for the slightly froggy voice. Anyway, I hope you're gardening. I hope you're planning your spring garden, and check out the websites while they have a good stock of seeds, just in case they do have that spring seed shortage that we've been warned might happen. Have a great day, evening, whatever time you may be watching this. Please give this video a thumbs up, consider sharing it, and consider subscribing. And I would appreciate those things as it helps my channel grow. So have a great day, and thank you very much for watching.